There seems to be a lot of news coming out right now about these immigration tribunals, Harjat. Very good morning to you.
Good morning, Mike.
I mean, I don't know why there's more news coming out on these. I'm sure you'll tell me this has been going on for time immemorial, and these panels have been held for donkey's years. But why suddenly all this scrutiny on them? Do you think?
I think it's just the way the media is, and it's just the whole anti-immigration rhetoric at the moment. It's more scrutiny on it. There's more. It's an election issue. Labour were elected on it as well, and people want to see action, even though they're getting it at the moment. They perhaps feel, well, hold on, it's not enough.
Yeah, I mean, you're right. There is always going to be scrutiny on an issue which has become, sort of front and centre of an awful lot of people's concerns, I suppose you might say. Not just since the election, but before that as well. I mean, what are you making of the way Labour are doing what they're doing? They're saying that they're deporting a lot more people than the Tories did. Why are the lawyers not trying to stop them deporting these people like they used to?
Well, in regards to Labour, the public wanted less people coming in and more people being sent back. Yeah. That's what Labour are doing. The figures support that. Labour are doing that much better than what the last government did. In fact, maybe even threefold than what the government did. So less visas are being issued this year and the end of last year, and more people are being sent back. In fact, since Labour have come in since July, about 19,000 people have come in. The lawyers and the judges are there to make sure that the law is upheld and that to the letter of the law. That the government does not break the rules and that the rights of people are not ignored and that it works within a framework. Now, if the government doesn't like the law, then it's up to the government to change it. However, what the government can't do is break its own laws that it introduces. Just in a similar, it wouldn't when it's an employment tribunal, just as it wouldn't, if you got fired from your job or, if you got an unfair parking ticket. So it's down to the government to adjust the laws to make sure that they fit in with the promises that they made and make sure that they're not overriding them or that they're not ignoring people's rights.
But the problem is the human rights law, isn't it? I mean, that's the one that seems to be the one that continually is used to do things which say right-thinking people might think was wrong. For example, what law covers whether or not somebody's a child? If it comes down to somebody sitting on an immigration tribunal panel and saying, I don't think he's as a child, or the Home Office says, we don't think he's a child, but then the judge says, actually, well, I do think he's a child, what law is that?
Well, once again, the law that's prescribed, the procedures that are prescribed, and the judge follows them and makes sure that the Home Office has done that. Now, the Home Office might need to change its procedures. We know, Mike, how many years have we been speaking on that the Home Office is a total mess. It's not fit for purpose. Every year, MPs get together and tell us, it doesn't matter what government's in, they tell us that this is a machinery that's not fit for purpose. And despite human rights laws being around and the ECHR being around, Labour have managed to send 19,000 people back. Now, the argument was by the previous government,
but that number's unclear, isn't it? It's not clear who those 19,000 people are because they won't tell us. And many of them are not being removed forcibly. Many of them are going because they want to go or because they're being encouraged to go.
One thing is clear, they didn't have a right to be here. So they've gone. Before they were staying here and still not being sent back or not deciding to go
back. But there's
back.
A lot more than 19,000 people who have no right to be here still, who are still here.
Of course. And it's impossible to suggest that 1.5 million people are going to be rounded up and sent back. There'll have to be some sort of compromise in relation to perhaps allowing people to work or, seeing who's been here for a long time. There's people who've been here 18, 19 years, Mike, without any paperwork. And, so they would say they're assimilated. Labour would say, well, hold on, no, you don't have a right to be here. But the fact is, Labour have sent these people back. The Conservatives could have, but they didn't for some reason.
The Conservatives tried to send people back quite often, and they were stopped by lawyers. Sometimes those lawyers involved Keir Starmer.
Well, those same lawyers are still about. The same judges are still about.
But they're not stopping it now, are they? You don't see stories any longer about lawyers stopping people from getting on planes and dragging people off planes. It doesn't happen anymore. Why? I can only concede that because the Labour government's doing it.
No, actually, that still happens. The fact is, the focus is now on small boats. First, it was on work visas, which Labour have slashed down. It was on dependents of care home and student visas, which Labour have cracked down on. Then it was about the lack of people.
It was actually the Tory government that changed the rules on coming in. So Labour have cracked down on a rule that were brought in by the Tories. I don't really care who brought the rules in. I just want to make sure that we're all on the same page.
Yeah. Yeah, but if they wanted to, they could have reversed it. And if they were pro-immigration, then they wanted to, but they didn't. So they're carrying on that policy, and in fact, they've made it a lot more harder. They've made little tweaks here and there, which make it harder, and it's going to become harder again. They've raised minimum incomes, and they've raised and they've maintained the spouse visa requirements. So the fact is, Labour could have done a lot of things to reverse it. It hasn't. It's gone with its policy. They have got a better record than the Conservatives. But now the focus is on small boats, because that's the only thing that they haven't managed to control. So the fact is they've managed to control everything else. The agenda now is small boats. Can they control this? They're working to smash small gangs. Yeah, it doesn't
look like
at the moment.
25,000 have come already. It doesn't look like it at all.
Yeah, it doesn't look like it at the moment, Mike. But let's see. Let's give them time. Let's see where we are in 6 months' time. See if they've made a difference, and see
what would your
if their
advice
policies
be?
are working.
What would your advice be to them to stop the boats?
My advice would be to work closer with Europe, offer them a better incentive, which perhaps hasn't worked out, but also realise that...
We've already given Europe loads of money, though, haven't we?
Yeah, and to get these gangs and get the traffickers at the source, really at the source, and also perhaps not to help in a displacement of people in the first place. Stop selling weapons to countries which are making people homeless. I mean, it's quite simple.
Well,
you can't
Ukraine.
profit. Well, you can't profit from arms sales to countries, and then once reduce millions of people's homes to rubble, and then say, sorry, got no space for you at the InGov.
Well, I don't think we were selling any arms to Syria, but that's another question. What do you make of?
We are selling arms to countries which are making people homeless, though, and we're profiting from the sales for that.
We may well be.
Yeah, well, we are.
We may well be. What do you make of Jonathan Reynolds pretending to be a solicitor? I mean, you're a solicitor. He's been rebuked by the Solicitors Regulatory Authority, and Robert Jenrick says that he's probably got a prima facie breach of the Solicitors Act of 1974 and the Legal Services Act of 2007, which make it a criminal offence to pretend to be a solicitor.
Yeah, well, it is an offence. So technically, it is an offence. It's up to authorities to charge them. If that had been me or you, Mike, we might have been treated differently. We could have been looking at fines. We might have been looking at jail time.
Yeah.
People have been jailed for providing legal services.
He can't possibly stay in the cabinet, can he?
It's down to Keir Starmer. But if people have been fired for a lot less, right? So Louise Haigh got fired, I think, unfairly for a lot less than that. But
well, she had a conviction for fraud, which actually was a conviction. So that's not.
Yeah, it was. But then once again, what is this? This is a potential breach of a Solicitors Act, right?
Well, yeah, but it's a criminal offence, though, nonetheless. I mean, we can't have a government full of criminals, can we?
If we're holding it to Louise Haigh standards, or people have been expelled from the party, or had the whip removed for just making statements, then we've got to definitely have a look at someone who's. Why was the need, Mike? Why to hold yourself out to be... It's the whole image, isn't it? Showing that you're an academic, you've attained something, you're a professional, hoping to add credibility to your CV. I mean, that's what it is, right?
I mean, personally, it wouldn't be something I'd want to admit to be honest, Harjap, but, that's just me.
Listen, prayer-sins, Mike, prayer-sins.
Listen, he's I don't understand why people would fake their CV. I've never understood that. It tells me something about their character, but I'm glad you agree with me that it is an offence, but thank you very much indeed. Harjap Singh, immigration lawyer and solicitor, basically, who says, Reynolds shouldn't be in the job. He should not be a cabinet minister any longer. He cannot be the business secretary. He's committed an offence. He's pretended to be something he's not, and that thing he was pretending to be was actually a solicitor.